live?
Going live now. You can start. Thank you.
All right. Hello, good evening to everyone who is watching us, and welcome to the 21st edition of Tbilisi International Film Festival. So, as you know, due to understandable reasons, we are completely online, unfortunately, and but that's still better than nothing, still better than just not doing anything. So please check our channels, just follow our program. You have a lot of interesting films and a lot of interesting talks and Q&A sessions and master classes with our great guests. And today I'm incredibly honored to be moderating this meeting with magnificent Agnieszka Holland. Thank you for being with us. And thank you for your latest film, which is included in our program. And festival viewers already have a chance to watch the film. I know that quite a lot have already seen it, and you still have a chance, dear viewers, to see the film. So please use it. It won't be for long. We also, of course, encourage you to ask questions. Please use the Q&A chat section of this webinar, and please send us your questions. So, dear Agnieszka, hello. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, thank you for having me. You know, I was invited several times to Tbilisi Film Festival, and I never was able to come because it was in conflict with my working schedule. And it was always my dream to go to Georgia. And I hope that one day it will gonna happen, even if not only in spirit, but also that I will be able to drink wine with you and see your country a bit, which I always was fascinated also because of my filmmaking friends. So you know, the pandemic is good for that at least like that I can be present at the festival.
But we will seize this opportunity, and hopefully next year we will invite you to Tbilisi, and we will be definitely very happy to host you in Tbilisi in person, not only online, but in person. So as I mentioned, your latest film, Charlatan, is included in our program, and we are very thankful for it. And I'd like to start our talk with this film, with the latest film and the story behind it. For those who haven't seen it yet, we'll try to not to spoil it for you, because this is a very, this is a film that where it is important not to know everything ahead, right? Because it's built in a way that I would not call it a thriller, but it has certain tension in it, and it is important not to know the outcome, how everything will end. For those who know, yeah, definitely. So it is based on it's a biographical film in a sense, right? It is based on a real person. And please, could you tell us how you came up with the idea to make the film about this Czech healer and the herbalist?
Actually, it wasn't my idea. The story came to me, and as it happens quite often, you know, it's a lot of scripts which are sent to me, and or some books, and mostly I just read it, and after several pages, I see that maybe it's great, but it's not for me. But this time I read it immediately and found it's intriguing and interesting as a next step for me. And it was partly because I feel very close to Czech culture. I was studying in Prague, the cinema in FAMU Film School. I spent the most important, maybe in terms of the formation of my soul and brain, years of my life. And like 8 years ago, I did the miniseries for Czech HBO called Burning Bush, which was the story of my youth, actually, of a young student, Jan Palak, who in 1969 immolated himself in the protest against the Soviet invasion.
Yes.
And anyway, it was this miniseries, which was written by young Czech screenwriter, was for me very like enriching and very important professional and human and artistic experience. And working with the Czech team was great. I just, you know, I had such a, I was so happy during this production that when I received soon after the script of Charlatan, I was like positively imposed. And I told them only that I want to do it, but I will not have the time in next few years, because I had already another projects online. It was Pokot or Spur, based on Olga Tokarczuk's book. After Mr. Jones and some series in the meantime. So it was very packed years of my professional life. And they waited, but we only casted it. We casted the main character, Ivan Trojan. And during this time, we've been developing the script, changing the script with the writer Marek Epstein, who is also a young, talented man. Of course, I was intrigued to that because of the complexity of the character and the storytelling, and because of several subject matters, because the film is not simple. It seems to be like pretty simple, but it has a lot of layers. And actually, depending on your personal sensibility, you can enter through different layers. And I already met a bit of the audience and film critics regarding this film, and everybody practically read it in different way. The different things have been important for the people. And I I found it like very inspiring, this kind of this, you know, layers structure. But every film is like a journey. And after doing another 2 films and coming back to Charlatan, and they've been waiting for me with patience. Suddenly I had the week when I couldn't remember why I wanted to make it. I was in different place in this moment, and I was like really in panic, kind of. But fortunately, after everything came on its place, and probably it was good because it forced me to make more of the, you know, of the conceptual work. So it's like that. It was a gift from, you know, from my Czech friends, this story. And I didn't hear about Jan Mikulášek before. But the film is not typical, you know, biopic. It means
Yes.
it is pretty free. It means it's a lot of facts are exact, but all the psychological side, it's a bit our invention. It's not many documents about it. And also several events have been slightly different, and we made the compilation of different facts and characters.
So my question was also, you made earlier the film about Arthur Rimbaud, and you have this experience of, well, you mentioned that it is not a typical biopic. Of course, it's not. And neither is the Total Eclipse, I would say. But still, anyway, when you are treating with the true story, with an existing person, well, in case of Rimbaud, it was like more famous one. So what kind of attitude do you take to this existing person, historical figure? So do you feel some kind of responsibility to be truthful to its biography, or it's not, it is the least of the concern and you don't care about it, or how do you treat with it?
What is the truth? What the truth means? The truth is something very subjective, you know, what is true for me. The inner truth of the character, as I read it, is something which is my point of view. And the truth of the facts, of the exterior truth, with that I'm kind of free, not completely. I want that the main things which define this character remain exact, but with the, you know, biographical details, chronology, and, you know, and the surrounding characters, and the, you know, and the conflicts. I think that we can be free, that our imagination is the part of the, you know, of the content. And the person is more the inspiration for the writer or filmmaker than the like heavy burden of the factual recollection. And I don't believe in the possibility to make true biography, because we always see the peak of the of the frozen mountain. We don't know what was inside of this person, even if this person left the letters and the diaries. The letters and the diaries can be also the official kind of the story. We know only the official side of the story. Now the biographies, the scandalous biographies about the people who are still alive, for example, about Milan Kundera, they publish in Czech Republic the biography, which is very like, aggressively discovering his secrets. And but at the same time, I don't believe in that neither. I think that the only truth is the truth to yourself, artistic truth you try to establish when you are treating the subject. And the filmmakers, the directors are pretentious, and they are the thieves and parasites. After a while, I deeply believe, for example, I have somebody's script. I forget that it's somebody's script. After a while, I believe that it's mine. And this character, I believe that I created him somehow. So maybe it's not fair, but it is like that.
Yeah, but because it's a fictitious work anyway, in the end, it's not a documentary, and it does not have this claim that it's very exact and truthful to the facts of a person who lived some time ago.
Well, for example, take, the very famous film about musician like Amadeus, right?
Yeah.
Which is similar, by the way, to Pushkin's play Mozart and Salieri. And you can say that it's pure invention. We don't have the proofs at all that first Mozart was poisoned, and second that he was poisoned by Salieri, and all this construction of the plot is very hypothetical, and is the fruit of the psychological imagination of the writers. So this kind of approach is closer to me than the very strict recollection. And yeah, documentary has different rules, of course. The documentary has to have this stamp of factual truth.
Yes.
At least classical documentary has, because I've seen also the documentaries which have been totally creative.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, back to the film, to Charlatan. So it opened in Berlin this year. So and then because of the pandemic, it has like difficulty with the screening, definitely. Yes. So, but I wanted to talk about more about this story in today's context. So you mentioned that was not your idea. You were offered the script, but you liked it and you decided to make it, right? But in this context of today, when some people started to doubt in the medicine or in the power of science, so we are still waiting for the vaccine, and so this context of pandemic to me has changed the meaning of this film also, because one layer, as you mentioned, there are several layers in this film, and definitely that's true. There are more than one or two or three layers even in this film, but one film is about treating illnesses, treating people by a person who is proclaimed as a charlatan by the regime he lives in, but his vocation is to heal. He desperately needs to heal people, and now it adds some peculiar another additional layer to this film, I would say. So it's about treating, it's about medicine, and it's about, I would say, believe in an irrational power as well. So
yes, it means Nicholas and we try to express this in the film. He wasn't the charlatan in terms that he was a crook. He the real gift of diagnosis and of creative discovery of the combination of herbs, which could be helpful in the situation when regular medicine seems to be powerless. This gift came first from some kind of the gift for something, let's say, a bit irrational. But it came in the first place from the knowledge and experiments and hard work. So he was like a doctor, except that he didn't have the official diploma. He had several diplomas because he was tested by the different committees of regular doctors, and he also was used sometimes by the regular doctors in helping in the diagnosis. For example, he was a friend with the head of the important hospital in Prague, Bulovka, and the head of this hospital was sending him quite often before the Second World War and after the patients when they had the doubts with the diagnosis. And actually, after Mikołajek came out from the prison, when he spent some time of his life, it's like shown in the film why. He lost all his goods. It means that everything was confiscated, and his house and everything was confiscated by the communist state. So this official doctor from this hospital invited him to his home, and he was living the rest of his life in some kind of. It shows that the opposition between official medicine and Mikołajek, of course, existed, but not totally. That sometimes the doctor asks him help also for their own problems. And this gift, it is the gift which was his richness and in the same time his curse. And we are trying to show this also. And this subject of the gift and the price we are paying of the gift was in my films, biographical films about the great artists like Rimbaud Verlaine or Ludwig van Beethoven. So Mikołajek is some kind of the, of the Ludwig van Beethoven of herbalists.
Yeah.
And
so I am one of the layers in the film. So there is one big important layer of the film. It's the changes of the political systems and then the regimes. The person, as if like he goes through different regimes in his lifetime, right? It's and then when the regime is changed, he's accused of collaboration with Nazi regime and fascists, and that's where his problems also a big part of his problems origin from. But another very important one in this film, I would say, one can read this film or one can watch this film as the very moving love story, I would say. This is to me, this was obviously one of the leading layers of the film, like leading which is quite on the surface and which is, I think, the most important one in the film. What do you think when you mentioned that this film is multi-layered and different critics or different viewers talk to you about the film in different manners, so they read it in their own manner. So what is most important for you, if I may ask this question?
Well, for me, apparently, all those layers are important, if not, if I will be too partial into one, the balance of the story will go apart. But yeah, the love story is the emotional heart of the movie for me, and something which make this film not only the description of very complicated, ambiguous, strange man, but also something very human and mysterious, as the human souls are mysterious. But the nature is important for me also, because the strength of the Mikołajek and his gift came from the connection to the nature, and in the same time he's unable to accept his own nature. And this paradox, I think, is somehow the key to the story as well. So yeah, It has multiple interpretations, but the love story, okay, David, I agree.
Yeah, because it's well, I'm not again spoiling the film for those who will see, because they will see how important the love story is, especially in the end of the film. Well, all through the film, but in the end, definitely, so, because it defines the ending of the film. You mentioned that you studied in Prague. So I wanted to ask you, because you have such a diverse film career. So you've made very different things in cinema, and very often in different languages. So how is that? So, well, first of all, I guess you speak Czech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So have you had an experience when you did not speak the language of the film you made, or participated in something that you did not speak, and how important it is to feel the language you work in?
Except of Polish, I don't speak perfectly any languages I'm speaking. I'm speaking several languages. I speak English, French, Czech, Slovak. I spoke pretty good Russian. I forgot a bit, but after refreshing it, I am able, to communicate in Russian. But the Polish is only one which I speak in the masterful way. It means I control the language entirely, and the other languages I'm a little like playing with that, with the gaps between my knowledge. But I did 2 movies, and actually both of those movies have been nominated for an Oscar, so they have been efficient in some way in the language which I don't speak. And it was I did The Angry Harvest and Europa Europa in German. I don't speak German. I tried to learn a bit, but I came to the conclusion that it will be impossible and that I will not live in Germany. So I didn't put the efforts on that. And I have to tell you that it was very interesting experience with the Angry Harvest. Maybe it's a little long story, but if you ask the question, is the story experience which was probably the most important to me. Angry Harvest was the first film I made after emigrating from Poland after 1982. It took a few years before I was able, to find the producer and the money, even very small money, to invest in my project. I wrote the script for this film in Polish. It was translated to German, and that it was, which I didn't know, adapted by the domestic writer of the producer. And I didn't know that he made a lot of changes because I didn't speak German. So we've been rehearsing, reading the script before starting the shoot with the actors, with the 2 main actors, Annie Miller-Stahl and Elizabeth Trissenar, and they've been reading it in German. And I was sitting with my translator, a Polish woman living in Berlin, who was very good, translator, immediate translator. And I started to feel that something is very wrong. That when the scene we are reading had supposed to have different emotional tension, different emotional partition. And this feeling that something goes wrong was growing. And I asked Dorota to retranslate from German to Polish what is in the dialogues. And I realized that it's very different. And after we came to the first translation, and I was very angry, and this man, by the way, was like the idiot, apparently pretentious dick. So we came back to my script, and I was controlling everything, but I understood one thing, that you cannot not understand the words, but you can feel exactly this emotional partition of the scene and of the dialogue. And somehow it calmed me down. I said, okay, I will, even if I don't know what they are exactly telling, of course, I always know the script, but I can judge the truth of that and the tension of that, and if it's too much or not enough. And I was directing with the translator my German movies without feeling that I'm losing something very important. I think that the dialogues are overrated in the movies, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the influence of Hollywood cinema, that dialogue became so important. It's somehow carrying the story, and I think that it's good if the different things are also important, or maybe more important. And when I was watching the movies in the film school when I was young, and they've been screening throughout the films without subtitles, and in this time I didn't speak any language, so Swedish, Bergman, or Truffaut, and I watched the movies, and sometimes several times, like Persona or Gilles Jim, without translations. And after years later, I watched them with the subtitles or understanding the language, and they've been less good, somehow.
Yeah.
Not knowing exactly the language made those films stronger and more sensual and more complex, less literal.
So, speaking about your diverse experiences, there's a question from our audience. You have worked on screenplay of The Three Colors Blue. Could you please talk about your experience while working on it?
Well, I cannot tell that I wrote the script. The script was written by Krzysztof Kieślowski and Krzysztof Pisiewicz, and Krzysztof Kieślowski was my very close friend, the closest friend I had among the filmmakers, and we've been helping each other. He was helping me when I was writing and after editing the film, and I helped him. This collaboration was like friendly collaboration. But when he was doing Three Colors, he asked me, and also another friends of us, Edward Żebrowski, to participate in the final versions of the script. So it was mostly the long discussions, analysis, changes. It wasn't the writing per se. And after Krzysztof sat and wrote the final version, and after somebody translated it to the languages of the story, because he didn't speak any language, Krzysztof, except of very broken English and Polish. So my participation was more like critical eye and some inspirational comments and ideas, and it wasn't different from what we did before. Maybe more extended because we've been credited for that and paid for that, so we put more of time and efforts. But I don't feel to be auteur of this film, and actually I was quite critical. And Krzysztof, at this moment, at this trilogy, he was already, I think, very tense and very tired, and he was less open to the criticism. Before, we've been able to say the things very brutal to each other, and on the occasion of, I think, Blue, or maybe Red, I don't remember, I told him quite brutal criticism, and that is some kind of the philosophy for the cleaning ladies or something like that, and he was really offended. I remember this moment very well, and I understood that probably he's more fragile when doing this very, complex and project with a lot of responsibility, and I have to be careful when judging it.
I wanted to mention another friendship of yours, and very special for me, with Olga Tokarczuk. Because what you mentioned about the importance of dialogue, and then the dialogues are a little bit, there are two, how to say, the heavy weight on the dialogue because of the Hollywood influence and then spoken word. But what happens when you take, and you made a film based on her book, right? What happens when you take such a, I would say, a master of words? Unfortunately, I don't read Polish, but I've read her books in brilliant translations into English. I can still say that she is the master of words. So how do you treat these materials? How do you because it's very difficult for me to imagine her in another medium. So I have seen the film and I really loved it. So how you worked with that?
Well, it was actually quite long labor, and we didn't expect it. I knew Olga's work before, and I liked her books very much, and I wanted to adapt something. But I found her previous books too complex and literary, literary capricious, difficult to translate to the pretty primitive, medium, like a film.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read this one, several subject matters interested me. The rebellious older woman, and the animals' rights, and the metaphor of the hunters, and all the things. And I thought that is that will be relatively easy to adapt it, because it has the structure of the thriller.
Yes.
And it has very strong and very, character, and several like secondary characters which are possible to, to embody. And I asked Olga to write the script, and she was very, confident about it. She never adapted her own work, but she participated in some script writing a bit. So she sat, and very quickly, because she's, experienced writer, wrote the script, and I read the script, and it was terrible. It was like totally, all the ambiguous quality of the novel, and all the mystery completely evaporated, and it was very à la thèse, very primitive, kind of the ecological propaganda thing. So I told her, Olga, it's terrible, and she said, yeah, I think so, it's terrible. So we thought that maybe it's impossible to approve it. After she came to my house to Brittany, and we sat for like a few weeks, and was analyzing it and making the new structure. And after we separated, and she was writing it again, and I was rewriting her writing and writing my ideas. And we thought, we gave to each other 3 months to finish it. And like 2 years later and 18 drafts later, we still been not happy. And she's very humble and very, very honest. I think that with the writer who has normal ego, this kind of the collaboration will be impossible. But with Olga, it was totally possible. And she also gave me a lot of trust. So finally, we felt that we are close to the good result, and it was Czech co-production also. So I asked Stefan Hulik, who is a screenwriter who wrote Burning Bush, this miniseries I was talking about, I was talking about.
Yeah.
And he did some kind of the cosmetic work, like the script doctoring a bit, and not a lot, but suddenly it started to shine. And that is, something very mysterious also, how it happens that you make the small changes and suddenly it works. And before it was like, staggering. And I told that it's like you have the house is built, is constructed, but the windows are dirty. And when you wash the windows, suddenly the sun comes inside and lights everything. So, he washed the windows. And after I was shooting it quite a long time, it was because we wanted 4 seasons, and Olga was visiting quite often on the set, and she was very gracious and very naive about the process, and it was lovely, and we became really very close friends. So we hope to do something together again, and I was one of few guests she invited to her Nobel's week. Yeah.
So now we have some other questions from our audience, and one of them sounds like this. Both Mr. Jones and Charlatan carry strong messages. Is it your aim to tell stories that raise awareness on various political issues?
Well, I think that we are living in very, complex, difficult, and dangerous time, and certain mechanism from the history are in different form, of course, coming back, and that the modernity has so many challenges and so many dangers that the cinema can be also the tool to ask the questions and to speak about it. At least it's my temperament. I'm really connected to the reality in maybe exaggerated way even, but it's not because, you know, it's like in Charlatan, Mikołajek in some point says, I'm not interested in the politics. And it's true, he's not interested in the politics, but politics is interested in him.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that is, you know, it's why I'm coming back to first part of 20th century and to this region of the world, because the destiny of the citizen of Central or Eastern Europe in the first part of 20th century was like he became the toy in the hands of the regime and history, and to preserve your own identity and your will and and to be the subject and not the object was extremely difficult if you wanted to preserve some kind of the security and well-being. And so all those regimes have been pushing you into the conformism very strongly, and the humanity conformed to the situation. And when I'm watching, you know, my Polish co-citizens right now, I could think that the most of them is conforming to the new regime which came with the populist right-wing government we have. But some individuals cannot. And those individuals like Gareth Jones, for example, are the mystery to me. How it happened that suddenly one human being acts against his own personal interest and expose his basic security to fight for the cause which he thinks is just or important. And I think that we will never know what it means exactly, but I think that it's important to remind that the people like that exist, and that they are not only the messengers of the change, but they are also the hope to others who sometimes want to break this mirror, because in the mirror of somebody who is courageous and noble, we see our own weakness, but in the same time, without them, the existential pessimism will take over.
And in case of Charlatan, I see it as a person who does not have this very strong will to oppose, because he has something different, and he chooses to conform somehow, to stay somewhere unnoticeable, but follow his vocation, follow what he is born for his gift. That's yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say though this is righteous and this is a piece of shit. I want to see exactly how, you know, complexity of the choices. And Charlatan Mikołajek says that the biggest burden is possibility to choose, that the choice is the most difficult thing. And also impotence or inability to change something. It means, you know, I think that we are all weak, by the way, and, you know, the people quite often think that I am a courageous person, but I know the moments when I'm the less courageous person possible. So I am not a judge. I'm not the, you know, attorney. I'm not the judge. I try to show and understand and have the kind of the empathy and compassion for the people who are who are not perfect.
Yeah, and thus they are human, because they are humans, right? So there is another question, a more general one, but very interesting. How do you start working on your films? Do you start working on plot, or do visuals come first and then you think about screenplay? Well, I see it's a quite general questions, but anyway. So I would add to that, so what is that, because you worked a lot with different TV series, both American and not American, Polish, and all kinds of TV series. So how these processes are different would be my question as well, like from making a feature film and working on TV series as a guest director sometimes. And
it depends very much on what kind of series it is and what is my position in the series. Because when I'm entering in the middle of the series, like it was the case with The Wire, for example, or House of Cards, I have to accommodate to the style which was already established. Yes. And in case of House of Cards, this, stylistic concept was very rigid. It means it was impossible to move the camera in any way, different way that it was, said by David Fincher. And so it was kind of the struggle to push it a bit, to just push the envelope slightly on the side. But that is less or more to do it like that, to be the director who is like guest director, let's say. It is mostly the stylistic exercise. It can be interesting. It can be important, as for example, The Wire was important for me because it was great writing and great diagnosis of the modern American society. So doing this series, I was able to enter very deeply into the truth of the tragedy of American city. And if I didn't participate in this, I will never know this so well, and I will never understand, for example, why Donald Trump is possible. So it was very, it was a very interesting journey. But when I'm doing the series, which I am formatting, I am like establishing the style, and even more when it's a mini series and I control it entirely, it's different. It is much more like making movie. Except one thing with the long TV series, the multi-seasons mini series, the structure is very conventional of every episode. And this convention after a while starts to bored me at least. Because every episode has to be told in the way that the plot is the most important thing, and it always have to come to the point when you hug the story, and you force the viewer to watch next episode. And that is, it was good exercise for me, but after I started to be bored by that. So I'm like practically doing it very little now. I like the form of the mini-series. It means like 4, 5, 6 hours of the story, because my films are always too long. And for final cut, I have to really like push this, a lot of clothes to a small suitcase. And that is, and it doesn't have the space to breathe sometimes, and when I'm doing miniseries, suddenly I can feel more free in the storytelling.
Right. So, but what about the feature films now? So what is the process like as our audience?
The feature film, every film is unique, and every film starts with the total, uncertainty if you will be able to find the way to tell it, to show it, to shoot it. Because every film is like, like the prototype. You have to establish the own word and own truth and own rhythm for this film. Because most of the structures and dramaturgy is much less conventional, at least in the kind of films I'm doing or are done in Europe. So you are looking for the final form till the end of the editing. In the TV series, the editing is just like less or more technical process. For example, when I'm editing the episode of American TV series, The editor is working on that like for 8 days with the 1 hour story, and after I have 4 days to make my cut. 4 days, it's in very short time, but I have to tell you, mostly it's enough. It means that there's somehow, the story is, this convention is so strong that you don't have the many choices. When I'm editing the feature film, sometimes it's 2 months, but sometimes it's 6 months of the editing. We are looking for the truth of that for quite a long time. So it is different process. It is much more personal process and much more risky process. You don't have this, this a structure which is keeping, the things together, and you only need to put some meat on that. It is like creating everything from the scratch, and suddenly you see that the structure is falling apart, and you have to like unite these pieces and try to rebuild it again, and so on and so on. Paweł Pawlikowski, for example, he is doing it that he shoots slowly, but he interrupts his shooting in some point, and he edits it and start to think, and after he reshoots some things and continue with the shooting, which is very luxury, in the modern film economy. So, and it's why he's so happy in Poland, because he found, the producers who are totally accepting this way of work. And after the success of both Ida and Cold War, they understand that it pays off in his case. But most of the directors are pushed to do it, of course, in more conventional way. And I start from different things, the film mostly starts to grow in me. And when it enters my dreams, when I start to like dream about it a bit, I understand that it's in my system. And after I'm looking for inspiration, it's historical film. I'm of course making the pretty extended research. And when it's contemporary film, it's different. But in general, the biggest inspiration for me are the photographs.
Nice. So it's still image, and visual part of it, right?
Yes, but
that is prevalent then.
Image which often holds some story, The photographs, I love photographs, and these frozen moments are for me more like, inspiring than to watch like documentary film for the inspiration.
All right. So I'm addressing the audience. So we still have some very little time. So please hurry up if you have questions. And I wanted also to ask you about the very early part of your career and the beginning, so to say. So what motivated you to become a filmmaker earlier in your years? So what was that decisive moment when you decided, okay, now I'm becoming a filmmaker? How it happened?
I told it many times, so it became some kind of the anecdote, but it's true. I was 15 and I wanted to be a painter. I draw a lot and I was like quite gifted for that, and watched a lot of paintings in the books with the reproductions. In this moment, I met young men of my age, 15 years old, very talented, kind of the genius young painter. A little, I think today that he was autistic somehow. And he even didn't go to the regular school. He had the special teaching and the masters from the Academy of Art, been working with him. And I loved his paintings, which I found like extremely mature and beautiful. And we had some kind of the romance. And after a few months, I had the courage to show him my own paintings. And drawings mostly, and he was watching it very carefully. And after like 40 minutes of silence, watching in silence, he looked at me and he said, "It's not bad for the woman." And that it was first time that I heard this line, which I since heard many times, of course, as any woman in this profession or any profession, of this kind. And I was very offended, of course. But then I started to think, and I realized that somehow he's true, that my drawings are nice and original, but it's a bit like a hobby, that it doesn't express entirely who I am and my needs to express myself. And I started to analyze what are my needs to express myself. And then it was visual expression, but it was also telling the stories. It was always important to me, listen to the stories, read the stories, and tell the stories. And I did it from the very, early age. And the third thing, which I thought is important to me, is to have the power to tell to the people what they have to do. And when I put these three things together, I said, that is a film director. I am a film director. So then I started to prepare for the test to the film school. And since then I'm on this path.
Yes, and here is a kind of follow-up question to that from our audience members. So do you think it is essential to go to a film institute or film school in order to become a successful filmmaker?
No, I don't think so, especially now when when the tools of the filmmaking are so accessible. And it can be different way, I don't think so. But I think that is the most practical way, not because even that you cannot learn the technical things and to watch the movies in different kind, analyze them and so, but that is the time you have to focus on that. And I think that today the focusing is the most important and most difficult thing. You can focus on that, you can experiment, it's your time, it's your time of freedom. And it's the time when you are meeting the people who has the same passions and are your contemporary. And in discussion with them, you can learn about yourself much more than when you are just an assistant or watching somebody's work.
Mm-hmm. And here is this one last question I think we can take. What films have been the most inspiring or influential to you and why? Oh, that's a nice question.
Well, that is a nice question, but difficult to answer because they've been so many, Yeah. When I was watching a lot of film when I was young, and I think personally that was the best period of the cinema. It was 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. And I found my notebook from 1965, when I was in the high school, and I marked my favorite films of the year. And it was 250 films.
Oh.
Yes. And today, if I find 2 or 3, I'm happy. But certainly some directors influenced me more. And it was certainly Robert Bresson. It was Agnès Varda. It was some other French directors, but it was Bergman also. It was Kurosawa. And also it was Tarkovsky. It was Czech New Wave. Jan Niemiec and Vera Chytilova and Forman, Georgian film also. It means Parajanov, who is Georgian, not Georgian. He is like claimed by many nations, and a lot of films which are forgotten today. Less American cinema, I have to tell. Oddsman Out, for example, and the things like that. From the contemporary films, it's much less, which Pasolini, for example, very inspiring to me, very much so. It was a great period of very powerful directors, and I think it came from the fact that they witnessed or participated in the Second World War, and this experience gave them some power, some power of experience made them more creative and more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and here was a comment again in the chat. It's not a question, but thank you on behalf of all female filmmakers from Georgia. That's just a comment.
I know some. I am a friend with some. Nino and Nana, they are friends. So yeah.
So thank you for this very interesting conversation, and thank you for the film. And I once again remind our viewers now to go, please. You still have time to watch Charlatan, and you will see the technical details how to do it on our page. And please use this opportunity. And thank you, Agnieszka. And I really hope that next time we will meet in Tbilisi in person.
I hope so. Really, it's I will use the opportunity for sure this time. Thank you, David, and all the best to everybody. Stay safe, and I hope next year will be better.
Yes. Thank you. Goodbye.